All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited for this interview. Right now, I am joined by the most entertaining person in the fantasy industry, my favorite person in the fantasy industry. Of course, it is Joseph Roberts, aka the Fantasy Football Counselor. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I have been watching you and your Instagram content over the years. I guess the first question I have to ask is, where do you get all of your ideas?
It's all passion, really. So if I feel something is out there, like content about a guy, let's say like Odell, and I don't agree with it, I'll just come out and just say how I feel. I literally have no filter in regards to sometimes when I just put out content. Like, there really is no filter. So there's no one above me saying, hey, Joe, you can or cannot say that. A lot of people, the mainstream consueps per se, have a protocol in regards to what they can or cannot say, because there's jobs on the line. There's reputations on the line. With me, I really don't give a shit.
Yeah, and I feel like you have established that from the very beginning. Even before you launched the Counselor brand, you had Fantasy Frames, one of the most innovative businesses in the fantasy industry. Can you tell people who aren't familiar about Fantasy Frames how you got your start?
Yeah, so basically I was really into sports cards and I just loved fantasy. So I'm like, why not put fantasy, like make sports cards into a fantasy frame? And basically what you would do is you put your like sports cards, your players on your fantasy team in a sport card in the frame, basically. So it was like a trophy. And literally, so you could put like engrave your team name in there, put the sports cards of your players, and you had yourself a frame. So that was pretty much it.
That's all in it, but it no longer exists anymore.
Yeah, I took it in the back and buried it. It's done. It's just at that time I didn't have a huge brand, and the sales weren't there. I didn't know how to promote or push. I just wasn't my thing. But I realized I was just more than just a frame guy. I wanted to do more. It's funny because I had some haters even back then. I won't say who, say, oh, you're just a frame guy. And they're like, yeah, this frame has kind of been done. I'm like, no, it hasn't been done like this. This is really unique. You got a unique backing in the background. Where you can see your back of your sports card. It's really unique with the engraving, and it was really uniquely done. And people are like, you're just a frame guy, and some people in the industry are like, what, I'm going to be more than the frame guy. So that's when I started the podcast, and I kind of buried the frame.
When they make the Joseph Roberts movie, that could be the title, From Frame Guy to Lion, the Joseph Roberts story.
Absolutely. And even before the frame guy, I was actually doing hydraulic sales, which kind of gave me the sales background and gave me that tenacious attitude. I hated doing hydraulic sales, like not like the car hydraulics, more like industrial hydraulic cylinders and boring stuff like that. So I got sick of working for people, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this by myself, and I just branched out and I did it. And yeah, I don't think there'll be a movie done yet, but there's going to be some huge things happening. We get into that later into 2020 with the brand.
No, yeah, you are a rocket ship, and it's been fun to track. Actually, one of the most interesting things about Fantasy Frames was you had some incredible guys backing the brand. David Johnson, Martavis Bryant. I know things are a little dicey with you and David Johnson right now. Can you give us an update on your relationship? Because you've been in his home, right?
Yeah, so in 2016, he endorsed the brand, and, I've been kind of promoting him for like years, and then what happened was a couple weeks ago, we all know David Johnson sat due to injury, but the Cardinals led us to believe he was going to play. So I had him started in all of my leagues, literally, and he didn't do anything. So I literally took his sports card that was a 10 out of 10 signed sports card, and I smashed it. Literally, again, back to the no filter. And then he blocked me. It's weird because you do all these nice things. You promote him for years. You go to his house. He endorses your brand. Everything is good. And then one thing, you smash a sports card, and again, fantasy above all, let's put it that way, and then he blocks me.
Yeah, so I assume, do you still have his number? Do you keep in contact with him at all?
No, nothing like that. Mainly that main communication was done through an agent anyway, so yeah, no, nothing like that.
Man, that's a bummer because I'm hopeful that you guys can mend your relationship, and hopefully David understands that it is fantasy above all, and it's just business.
It's just business, man. I can't believe you blocked me. I'm a little shocked. I'm over it now, but it is what it is. I'm going to start him this week.
Okay. Are you? All right. What about, and didn't Kyler block you too? Did all the Cardinals block you?
the Arizona Cardinals team blocked me, and so did Kyler, because Kyler went on there and said, well, someone said that he lost because of Kyler, who's just a random fantasy fan on his Instagram. So I went in there, I'm like, yeah, and then Kyler said he doesn't give a shit. Basically, he could give two shits about whether the guy lost at fantasy or not. So then I realized Kyler doesn't care about fantasy, and when someone doesn't care about fantasy, I don't care about them. So I went on there and I said, well, the only reason people watch you, Kyler, or the Arizona Cardinals is because of fantasy, and then he blocked me.
Incredible.
Just speaking facts.
All you do, you speak facts and logic, and sometimes people don't like the truth. You also have a background in MMA. I have to ask, if you could get in the octagon with one fantasy analyst from the mainstream Concheapsis and take them to the mat, who would it be?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. That's going to cause some controversy. I'd probably want to choke out Matthew Berry. I'd probably take him out in the ring.
Yeah,
but I don't think he'd have much of a chance, though. I mean, he's around, what is he, 7 years old now or something like that?
No, I mean, but yeah, he looks pretty spry to me.
Charity. I do it for charity. Matthew Berry and me for charity. I'm only going the octagon with Matthew Berry. Because it wouldn't be much of a challenge. Though. They'd be like, you'd need like 10 Matthew Berries to even start, to compete with me physically.
Okay, I bet he could round up some of his ESPN guys and get in there. I was also going to ask, like, what do you think of those fantasy analysts with fruity names like Matthew Berry, like Field Grapes?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk bad about anybody, but it is what it is. Everybody's out there doing their thing. I'm out here doing mine. But the takeover is imminent. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, speaking of takeovers, I mean, you have built your brand on a lion mentality, and I think a lot of people might not know what that means. Can you explain the lion, the Concheapsis, in this existential battle that is playing out in the fantasy sphere?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, there's a lot of sheep, right? And one lion could take out a lot of sheep. Now, if you know the lion mentality, in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. I heard this from one of my motivational guys that I listen to, Eric Thomas. A gazelle wakes up, a lion wakes up, and the point of the gazelle is to run as fast as they can to get away from the lion. The lion is to catch the smallest gazelle, right? So I kind of relate the whole lion mentality of, going for what you want, being very strong. I relate the lion mentality to fantasy football. And every single year you have your mainstream consensus Concheapsis rankings, okay, where it's literally copy and paste from last year. There really isn't a thought process behind it. Everybody wants to play safe and go with the hordes and the mainstream, right? If you're with the herds. So if you're with the herds, you're just not going to really excel, because if you're doing what everyone else is doing, how are you supposed to really stand out? Now, you can use that for entrepreneurship, or you can use that for whatever you want. But yeah, it's basically lion mentality. Stray away from the mainstream, be strong, be concise with your decision, like stand by your decision. So I was really adamant about, for example, a lot of people, said Odell Beckham is a top 4 wide receiver this year. That was kind of like an industry standard. So nobody's really wrong if he busts, right? I said Odell's going to bust. And I said it 3 years in a row, before he even busted. This is 3 years in a row. He's been a first overall, basically predicated on that sheep mentality, like he's just an elite player. Well, I've been saying he's not that amazing, right? The catch made him who he is. So again, it's just sticking to your guns and no matter what,
Yeah, no, and I agree. One thing that's interesting, the lion mentality now, lions typically travel in a pride, but I think of you almost as like a lone wolf. Are there people in your pride of lions?
In the industry, there's a couple people. Yeah, the circle's growing a little bit. People are starting to see the vision. But for the majority of the mainstream Concheapsis, they're still, they're not going to put their reputation on the line, essentially. They're not going to say, hey, you know what? That guy, that guy's going to bust, or I really like that guy, or take a chance on a rookie in the second round. They don't do that. So, yeah, I mean, it's very thin, and that's a good thing. You don't want too many lions out there, or else everyone's going to get eaten up.
That's right. Here, I just had a merchandise idea for you. Would you ever consider selling a Counselor Nation sweater made of Concheapsis wool?
That's a good idea. That could be a good brand. I'll keep that in mind. I might have to give you a royalty fee on that.
No, just send me one of those sweaters and we'll call it even. It's all yours.
Let's do it.
Well, you can already see I'm repping the brand. No fluff in here. So I will.
Yeah.
I will continue to buy
I,
Joseph Counselor
I
merchandise.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So one of the things I remember when I was following you way back in the day, you continued to drill home over and over that you study fantasy football 10 hours a day. And I was like, I don't even work at my day job 10 hours a day. I mean, is this still the amount of volume you're doing? Just walk us through what's a day in the life of the counselor and his research.
Well, literally, I think that's it was more of a marketing type thing. I mean, it's become a lifestyle essentially. So 10 hours is probably even an understatement. I basically spend more time in that, not only necessarily just doing the studying, but totally immersing myself in regards to getting back to DMs, right? Talking to people, my elite talent mastermind, building up courses, reinventing myself, editing my podcast, looking at other ways to grow the brand, researching, studying, and watching games. So, 10 hours was just kind of to show people an exaggeration, but it's actually more because it literally is a lifestyle. So I'm doing everything fantasy. I mean, again, from preparing my podcast, doing the show, to editing, to making sure the content's there, making sure Instagram posts are done daily. Like, it's a constant routine, which is exciting because if you don't love what you're doing, forget it. There's no sense in doing it.
No, that's totally true. And I think another thing that separates you, kind of as a lion is that there's all these fantasy nerds on Twitter and they use stats to make fantasy decisions. They don't watch the games. What are your favorite advanced analytics and predictive metrics for forecasting fantasy performance?
Sometimes it's just behavior. It's looking at what happened in the past. So, for example, if I'm making a decision between two guys and one of them, has been really consistent the past 3 weeks and the other one hasn't, and they're pretty close in talent, I may lean towards the most consistent one. Then I'll look at matchups. So there's different variables to do it. But to go into pinpoint analytics, I'm not really that thorough. And I think if it's called paralysis by overanalysis, I like to call it. You kind of get stuck in this thing and you just kind of overanalyze. It's kind of like out-coaching yourself. I think you said you're going to ask me a question on Nagy. I think Nagy out-coaches himself with the Bears. Dude, just ground and pound, smash mouth football, smash the ball down their throats, run it down. You've got David Montgomery, the guy's a beast. Run it down their throats, go to your skills. It's the same type of thing with fantasy. Sometimes, even, have you done jiu-jitsu? Have you ever tried jiu-jitsu?
I do a little boxing, but I haven't done jiu-jitsu.
If you try to hold a guy too strong and you're aggressive, if you're wrestling a guy and he's stiff, you can really manipulate him, move him the direction you want. If you overanalyze, sit there and be like, analytics, I think you're screwing yourself. Lay back, look at the depth chart, look at the players, look at the team, look at the matchup. And, that's what I do. I just kind of look at more of an eagle-eye view instead of just a analytical number kind of point of view.
Yeah, and one of the things that you invented that has been really successful for my drafts, and it's kind of the Joseph Roberts analytical system, and that's, of course, the Cuddy system. Can you tell people how you came up on this kind of groundbreaking strategy?
It's really logical and it makes sense. I was just sitting there. I'm like, okay, what are some main variables I look at when I draft a player? Okay, he has to be consistent. Okay, yeah. He has to be, Cuddy, right? Consistent, upside. There's got to be upside there, right? So maybe a rookie's got a lot of upside, right? He's got to be durable. He's got to be high on the depth chart, and he's got to be young. And again, that's why you don't see me draft guys like Frank Gore or Larry Fitzgerald. The great guys, Hall of Famers. Not for fantasy, though. I like the young, dynamic players, the Montgomerys, the Jacobs of the world. Young, dynamic players I like. And I try to fit as much as I can in that criteria. They got to be as consistent as possible. Now, you're looking at a rookie, Joe. Well, you draft rookies. Yeah, but sometimes the upside outweighs that consistency. You got to kind of feel it out. You know what I mean? But yeah, it definitely works, and it gives you a guideline to draft an optimal player.
Yeah, no, I really like it. I've won so many leagues using the Cuddy system, and I definitely encourage people to apply it to their drafts as well next year. One other thing that kind of, steams my beans with these fantasy analysts is they'll make a bad pick and they'll write this 2,000 word article being like, well, this is why it got wrong. Here are the numbers, blah, blah, blah. I like that you just say, this guy sucked, and you move on. Why do they have all this fluff to say they got a pick wrong?
Because they got to be politically correct, because they've got somebody, because their collars are too tight. They wear these ties usually, and what it does is it cuts off circulation and logic goes out into the toilet. Sometimes you just got to be, really logical, common sense. If the guy is not performing for fantasy, I mean, he sucks. Why can't you just say it? Because they want to be politically correct. I got out of the corporate world with the hydraulic sales to avoid the corporate world. Then I come into this place called fantasy world. I'm like, I love fantasy. What's more fun than fantasy? And then you've got these white collar dicks like controlling everything. A big brother. It's like, screw that. I'm going to be the outlier in the industry. The hell with everything. They suck. They suck.
Yeah, and they waste my time with an article that takes me an hour to read. You give it to me in 15 seconds in an Instagram story. We move on. Odell sucks. Let's move on.
Let's move on. They're still dwelling on him. Now they're saying it's Baker's fault. But then it was injury. But then it was Eli. Like, dude, why aren't you figuring out that he's just really not up there elite? He's not a Julio or Hopkins talent-wise. He's talented. He's very flamboyant with his catches, so he's one of those guys that's very marketable, looks great on the reels, right? But overall, he's just a guy that got inflated, and he's good for marketing, right? That one catch made him inflated, which drew a lot of attention, which made him get the top corners in the league. So when an average player who looked really good on the one play, who's marketable, now is facing the top corners, he's gonna suffer. Yep. He's not that good. He's not supposed to be there, basically.
Yeah. Can I tell you about a Lion trade I made in my league a few weeks ago?
Let's hear it.
I traded Christian McCaffrey from David Montgomery, and I have zero regrets. Should I have any?
You traded Christian McCaffrey for David. I mean, Christian's the hottest player in fantasy probably right now, so it might be a bit of a mistake, and I'm a David Montgomery guy. Why did you do that? Straight up?
Yeah, well, I just thought that, so fantasy, we look forward, right? We need points for the playoffs. And Christian McCaffrey's been great up to now, but he's getting a ton of carries. He could get hurt. David Montgomery's trending in the other direction. He's on the rise. I'm trying to win in the playoffs, not the regular season. That was my thought. He
could be a league winner. It is a risk, and I think it could pay off. I mean, like I said, there is no way it went down for McCaffrey, or he could keep going the pace he does, but definitely Montgomery's on upward trends, and he's got an easy matchup this week. It's a scary trade a little bit. I mean, I would do it. I don't care. I can't really say anything about it, but people will think you're crazy. But hey, that's fine because, 100 lions, 100 sheep are laughing at the lion, but he can eat them all up anyway. So it is what it is.
Cheers to the Lions right here, baby.
Cheers. I think you should have got more out of that.
I probably should have. I just got excited that I could get David Montgomery on my team.
You might have paid too much, to be honest, but it is what it is. I hope it works out, and I think it may.
Thanks, man. Kind of, I'm a content creator. I like doing videos. I aspire to have, your kind of following, your kind of success and prestige in the industry. What would you say to someone like me, other content creators who want to become famous in the fantasy space like you?
I think you definitely gotta, first of all, if you're not passionate, don't do it. So if you think I'm going to just do fantasy because I want to be Insta famous or YouTube famous, don't do it. Just do not do it. I tried that with mixed martial arts, and I'm like, I want to be the next UFC champion. I just wasn't crazy passionate about it. I always used to get anxiety getting in the octagon or whatever, and just sparring matches were always stressful. And anyway, if you're not passionate, don't do it. Put out a lot of content and just keep building the brand on multiple platforms and just go like hell. That's my advice,
Well,
completely.
Yeah, and you talk about putting out content like crazy. Let's address the elephant in the room. What are your thoughts about me sharing a lot of your videos and Instagram stories on Twitter? Because part of my brand now is posting your content, and I'm just curious what you think of that.
That's okay. I mean, I think you should still build your own brand as well, but I do appreciate all that stuff. It's okay to support somebody. But yeah, I mean, just stay in your own lane as well and do your own thing as well. But I do appreciate that too.
Yeah, because I just feel you have absolutely crushed the Instagram space. You're atop the mountain there. Twitter is this whole other sphere. I actually spend more time on the Twitter, and I'm like, the Twitter sphere needs more Joseph Roberts. So I feel like I'm just doing a favor passing along your stuff. But if you'd ever like to come mix it up in the Twitter streets, I know people would like to see you there as well.
I don't know. There's a lot of sheep in the Twitter in regards to fantasy football. I might make an appearance there. I am starting to grow a little bit more. I got to put a little bit more focus on it. I have it up here. I don't know. Something I never got into early on. And yeah, definitely. I'm going to start getting on Twitter a bit more.
I like it. I like it. Well, here's another thing. So sometimes I'll post your videos and people will say to me, this guy can't be serious. he's doing a bit. He's trying to be funny. He's just trying to provoke. And every time I say, Joseph Roberts is the real deal, okay? He is not fake. What do you say to these people that continue to think that you're doing some performance art bit?
I think the Conchiefs, I think they're just part of the Conchiefs. They got the blinders on. They got to wake up. Like when I said Odell's going to bust, and I called him, what did I call him? Odell something sucks Jr. I don't know. I had this name for him. People are like, you're nuts. How can Odell suck? But I'm like, listen, 2 years in a row I said stay away, right? And then the third year he's doing it to them again. It's just why do you conform? So when I say crazy stuff, sometimes it's wild, and no one's 100% right, but for the majority part, I'm actually right. And people got to start thinking outside the box and stop conforming to recency bias and what happened last year.
So that's the number one thing people say to me when I post your stuff. The second thing people send me, so people will send me DMs, Joe, and they will send me a screenshot, and they will say, this guy is a fraud. He bought his Instagram followers. And I say, go look at his Instagram page. It is filled with real people making real comments. What do you say to these people that say you bought your following?
I think just haters are going to hate. It's bullshit. If you look at the engagement's up there. It's really, really funny. And then they just constantly find something. They try to find a hole to bring you down when you're successful, whatever it may be. Either way, if it was, if they didn't care and if I wasn't as big as I am, they wouldn't. Like, I don't go right now and message somebody that's got 1,000. No, I mean, you're not judged by your followers. But even someone's got 100,000 followers and say, hey, man, I just don't spend the time to do that. So I think people should just focus on themselves instead of, trying to bring other people down, because, if I wasn't big, you wouldn't care. Like, that's just like I said, I wouldn't go and hack and bug somebody if they didn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like Odell, I talk about him because he matters. He's somebody that's up here, right? So I'm going to chirp about him, but not because I'm a hater, because I'm spitting out facts. So if you're going to hate, spit out facts.
Right. I don't know if you saw, you probably not because you're not on Twitter this much, but Ice-T had a tweet about a month ago, and he basically said, haters exist because they don't like the idea of someone else loving you. Let that sink in. And I was like, that is the truth, Ice-T.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, my passion fuels my fire. My family fuels my fire. Haters, they're just a cherry on top. I keep it coming. And again, look where haters have got me so far. Again, when I came into with the frame, I went to the industry with this, the mainstream Conchiefs, and I said, hey, man, I got this really cool frame idea. Well, we've already had something like that. That's been done. I'm like, no, it hasn't. I'm like, this has got a unique backing on it. It's never been done. Like, oh, yeah, we did that like 20 years ago, and that idea sucked. I'm like, dude, I'm a young, passionate guy. Why would you try to bring me down, right? So, again, it's just like everybody trying to keep you down here. You just got to break through and go.
Yeah, and I'm just going to do a couple more questions, then let you go because I don't want to keep up your time. Got to get you back to crushing, get you back in those Instagram streets. You did mention kind of inspirations and stuff. Who is your biggest inspiration and why is it yourself?
Why is what? Myself? What? What is the last part?
Who is your biggest inspiration and why is it yourself?
Well, I mean, are we talking, there's online mentors that I like that kind of help me get in the industry, but the inspiration is my dad. After losing him to a heart attack in 2015, I've been really driven. So that is a big inspiration for me. And then there's been a lot of online mentors that I've followed throughout the years, including a guy that got me into it, into this whole, reinventing yourself. But Tony Robbins was a big mentor. I'm kind of out of the Tony Robbins phase now. I kind of read through some of the BS with some of these influencers. But yeah, I'm just kind of in my own lane and I'm my own mentor right now.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to do a few rapid fire questions. All you have to do is pick one side or the other. So here we go. DJ Chark or Baby Shark?
What is this? Just a fun segment?
Yeah, just a fun. Let's just have a little fun here. DJ Chark or Baby Shark?
DJ.
Okay, DJ. Lion King or Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, the C.S. Lewis novel?
Lion King.
Lion King. Beta males or beta fish?
I'm going to go with beta males.
Okay. And copy and paste rankings or coffee and pastries?
I'm going to go with the pastries because anything's better than copy and paste rankings.
Excellent, excellent. And one final question before I let you go. Did Epstein kill himself?
No comment.
No comment. All right. Thank you so much to Joseph Roberts, the FF football counselor. I will link to his website, his Instagram, all that good stuff. If you guys aren't following this guy, you are missing out. Hands down, the most entertaining, most innovative guy in the industry. Thanks so much for your time, Joe.
Thanks, I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Talk soon.